I think that's one thing that the FBI and the Congress and a lot of other people in the General Accounting Office are looking into and should look into is exactly why this has never been prosecuted.
As we said, the Department of Energy takes an awful lot of flack from outsiders and from insiders. All of it ends up here at the department headquarters in Washington. A good part of it is aimed at this man, John O'Leary, the Deputy Secretary of Energy. Mr. O'Leary arrived 2 years ago with the Carter administration. He maintains that he has turned a do-nothing agency into an effective one.
We now have referrals on 9 companies, 10 companies, I think, just another referral last week. We have active audits.
These are referrals to the Justice Department.
Justice Department, right. In addition to that, we have ongoing investigations to the tune of another 60 companies, at least. There are a total family of 300 to 400 resellers in this business, plus the large refiners who are involved in the reselling business.
Estimates up to perhaps 600 resellers.
They're coming in, they're flocking in, have been flocking in for the last 2 years because the pickings are very attractive. The number that I have is 300 to 400, but it may well be 600. The fact of the matter is we have a lot of work to do still before us, and we're working away at it at what I regard as a respectable pace.
It's hard to get a straight answer on just how much oil has been converted to illegal profit. No one's sure, and that includes John O'Leary.
There may be 100,000 barrels a day of old oil that's converted.
Or more.
Or more or less.
Without driving us all crazy with numbers, which can easily happen in a story like this one, it would appear as though your left hand doesn't know what your right hand is doing sometimes when you look at these numbers.
Absolutely. I think by the time the whole book is written, we might find that there are violations to the tune of perhaps as much as $500 million, maybe even more.
$500 million in illegal profits.
In illegal profits.
But there are some estimates, press reports, government committee reports, that say $2 to $3 billion.
Oh, there are estimates that range all the way up to 40 billion, but the best estimates that we can make at the minute on the basis of the audits that we've conducted and the audits yet to be done is somewhere in the range of $500 million, but $1 billion and a half is a lot of money.
At one point, I think, according to some documents in this department, it was, what, $2 or $3 million a day in illegal profits.
Yes, I think that you can find documentation that will give you a broad range, but no one really knows.
Joe McNeff, whistleblower, still works for DOE, but he's been transferred out of Houston.
You can take, on particular transactions, maybe 200,000 barrels a month. A small reseller will be buying of old oil and changing it, making $8, $7 a barrel profit by changing from old oil to new oil. So you're over $1 million a month on a small reseller.
$1 million a month on a small reseller in profits?
Yeah. One of the companies where a man started off with virtually no money, with the secretary and a telephone, and within a couple of years, he's able to buy a refinery here in Texas for $10 million and pay for it, we've heard, in cash. He's got a Learjet, flies around. It's fantastic business. As they made tremendous profits, sometimes they can make as much as $1 million on one single transaction in a large quantity of oil. Then they started setting up other companies to take more of the risk and just share in the profit. So it became harder to detect as it went along, as companies went from one office with a secretary and a telephone to $5 or $6 million in the bank account. Then they became more sophisticated and let other people take more risk and just shared in the profits.
One of the things we found when we looked into this story, one of the things we heard, was that there was a slush fund set up by these oil resellers, a fund specifically to bribe government officials. Is that true?
I've heard that, yes.
How much money?
I've heard estimates up to $1 million or more dollars set up, and God knows they had it. They had more than enough profits, and the only thing they really wanted to make sure was that they didn't have to go to jail. And I've heard that from within the industry, that slush fund was set up and used.
To bribe DOE officials?
Yes, I've heard that.
I've heard those allegations, and of course those sorts of charges are referred to the Department of Justice, and you ought to ask them what they think of their validity.
What do you think?
I think that it's altogether possible.
You've got a look that's natural as can be, skin as smooth as silk. You're an American beauty with rose milk.
Rose milk skincare cream. I use it all over. It makes your skin so soft and smooth, and it's never greasy. Rose milk, I love you.
You're an American beauty with rose milk.
Because we fly the world every day, we've learned what the world wants from an airline. They want attention, and they want to be left alone. They want a tradition of experience and a lot of young ideas. Pan Am.
We fly the world the way the world wants to fly.
60 Minutes, a CBS News weekly magazine, will continue.
An innocent man is suddenly caught in a nightmare he cannot understand and may not survive. A devastating thriller starring Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier in a television premiere. Marathon Man. He's running for his life. The CBS Sunday Movie Special at 9, 8 Central and Mountain.
Tonight on CBS.
Ross Woodward here in the heart of Spokane's famous riverfront park. Behind me, the park is filled with thousands of eager beer aficionados. Yes, the giant Rainiers are running west, evidently to the Cascade Mountains, just as they have every winter at this time. With me here is Joey August, Spokane's Rainier expert. Joey, under handicaps, I'll ask you this question. What is your reaction to this auspicious occasion?
Well, Ross, these Rainiers are currently headed for their Cascade Chilling Ground. They should be fresh and friendly all year long. Of all the runs I've seen, this certainly ranks.
Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man, tonight at 9 in 2 Country.
Let me tell you about a car. An honest-to-goodness terrific car. This Chrysler Newport. It's big, it's beautiful, and it's probably one of the best values on the market this year. Compared to Chevy Caprice, for instance, you'll find that Newport is longer, wider, and has a larger trunk for family luggage. But even with its Chrysler size, Newport's 6-cylinder gas mileage is better. Now that's one big, comfortable car. Inside, Newport has all this room in all the right places. It's a car that's still built for 6 people, still built with that big, comfortable Chrysler ride. But when you get right down to it, this Newport, a Chrysler now, is sticker-priced $43 less than Chevy Caprice this year, comparably equipped. Now that's value. Chrysler Newport. Take a look. You'll be glad you did.
Our ancient republic has been threatened by a good many things in its history, but usually the threats and the defenders against them have been fairly identifiable as black hats and white hats. Sometimes not. Sometimes history changes things. We are not as sure as we once were about the Indians, for instance. And even at the time, the conflict in the western lands between the ranchers, free-spirited, big-living, four-square, and totally American, and the farmers, industrious, home-loving, ingenious, and totally American, even at the time, it was hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys. There's a conflict right now between 2 groups of Americans, and it has echoes of a fight between whether rancher or farmer should use the lovely land. It is as if 2 groups from 2 different Norman Rockwell paintings were fighting each other. This is the way the roads are, heading east out of Los Angeles or Long Beach or San Diego or Riverside. This is the way they are any Friday, as the largest group of recreationally oriented people in history, the Southern Californians, as they head toward the desert. These are the RVs, the generic term for recreational vehicles, every kind of truck and van and camper on the market. And strapped to them, or being towed on a trailer behind, are the ORVs, the off-the-road vehicles. The motorcycles with the exotic Japanese names, the 4-wheel drive Jeeps with the special tires, the dune buggies. If there is, in this late 20th century conflict, something of the frontier fight between rancher and farmer, then this is the range they're fighting for, the miles of fragile desert, with the tracked outposts of one side, and their wagons almost drawn up for defense. From this spot, in the low sand desert near the Mexican border, to the high creosote bush desert in the north, both sides feel embattled, beleaguered, and righteous. This is one side of the conflict, a perfectly legal dirt bike race in the desert. There are dozens of them every year. They are racing on the California desert, 16 million acres, just east of the Los Angeles megalopolis. These are the ORV people, off-road vehicle riders. The people who have always loved the desert say the ORVs are killing it. But the ORV people love the desert too, and they say they're not hurting it. And they say the ecologists and residents are trying to keep them out. It's a modern range war.
It's very unfair. There's plenty of desert for everybody, but they want nobody on it.
I'm just afraid of what is going to happen. Our flora and fauna is going to disappear, as it is doing right now, and someday there's going to be a pitched battle, I'm sure of that, by some of these homeowners who are going to take the law into their own hands.
ORVs come in many forms, but the most prevalent of all is the motorcycles that can travel off-road, dirt bikes, mini bikes, enduros. The off-road motorcycle has been one of the success stories of post-war Japan. It began in 1947 when Soichinda Honda strapped a war surplus field generator onto a bicycle. The sales kept building. In the early 60s, there were 400,000 registered motorcycles in the United States. By 1976, there were over 8 million, and 5.5 million of those were off the road. Today, 43 million Americans are using some form of off-road vehicle, and the impact has been felt in every state where there are public lands. If you ride an off-road vehicle and you live in California, which has more off-road vehicles than any other state, this is where you come. It is what you do with your machine in the desert that is causing the conflict. Having fun on an off-road vehicle almost always involves some sort of challenge. It's you and your machine against everybody else, whether it's racing across the desert or climbing up the side of a mountain, as these riders are doing at Jawbone Canyon. There are now lightweight bikes with special scoop tires that are designed for climbing up hillsides. But the environmentalists say that this kind of fun just eats up the thin soil layer that supports all life on the fragile desert. The result after continued use is erosion and dust storms. Howard Wilshire is with the U.S. Geological Survey.
What happens when a motorcycle goes up that is that it shreds the root system, decimates the plant, kicks it out, and begins to erode the soil. And in time, the entire soil mantle is lost. There's only 2 feet of it there. And you expose hard rock. A single motorcycle driving on a flat, dry, fairly hard surface will, in 1.5 miles, displace a ton of soil. With the hard rock beneath the soil, it will be literally thousands of years before it can be restored.
Some people who live in the desert have noticed the erosion after off-road vehicles have passed through their area.
I thought last year, I've been a resident here for 2 years, that the things would wash out. The road cuts, the cuts from the vehicles would wash out. They don't. They get washed out in places, but they just permanently disrupt the pattern growth, and when the wind blows, they just erode away where a vehicle has been. Frequently, people go to the dry lakes out here. There's smaller dry lakes in addition to the major ones. People run around on those, do donuts on their motorcycles, and kick up the dust at the time. But when the problem really occurs is when the high winds that we have here every month in excess of 70 miles an hour pick that dust up. It makes a beautiful, pristine, virgin piece of ancient land, a veritable dust bowl.
As the soil and plant life are stripped away, the effect on the animal life has been a major concern to desert naturalists. Aside from the animals who are unfortunate enough to get in the way of a speeding dune buggy, just the noise and the destruction of their plant food can force them out of their habitat and to almost certain death. Dr. Robert Stellens is a zoologist with the University of California at Berkeley.
This is the desert tortoise. Ranges very widely in the California desert, over into Arizona and down into Mexico a ways. It's an animal that feeds on desert vegetation, highly vulnerable. You know, it's so trusting.
Are they in trouble?
I would say so. I think considering the impacts now that are occurring in the California desert, we've got to watch this animal closely. This is our desert iguana now. This is another one that ranges widely in the California desert.
How does he stand now?
I think he's in rather dire straits in some areas because this animal spends a lot of time on the ground. It's in areas where there are a lot of impacts now, especially off-road vehicle activities, which destroy the burrows. Absolutely essential to the survival of the animal. If it isn't killed outright, if its burrow collapses, it may be in trouble. So I would say this one is quite vulnerable. We're losing literally millions. There's no doubt about it. We're losing millions of animals. We destroy one area after another. We're talking about public land that belongs to all the people of the United States. The question one has is, where will it end?
I've seen them run a rabbit until its heart bursts. This is great sport.
Dogs, too.
Dogs, too. Anything that can run. They will run until the animal's heart absolutely bursts. And they think this is funny. They run over the tortoises, and when we come back this last time, there was not even a bird here. There was no rabbits, there was no vegetation, no foxes, no wildlife at all. And when you don't even hear a bird out here, it's bad.
Our turtles and rabbits and the things that people are worried about, they're here. They've been here for thousands of years, and they're going to be here after we're gone. And no guy's going to ride a motorcycle out here and hit a turtle at 30 miles an hour and wreck himself. You know, that's a bunch of baloney, most of what they're saying.
There's a freeway over here that they carved out through the mountains. There's a sonic boom corridor here for the jets going from Los Angeles to Vegas. There's more rabbits out there now than there have ever been.
The California desert is one of the world's most important centers of prehistoric art. Ike Eastwold is with the Sierra Club in California and has made a study of the desert art left behind by the Indians.
We have some very rare kinds of prehistoric art here. We have giant ground figures that you can see best from an airplane. The intaglios, the giant ground figures, over 80% of them are cross-cut with vehicle tracks, and much of the damage is deliberate, where vehicles have deliberately been brought up onto mesas where these figures are, and deliberately brodies, that is wheel circles, have been cut on top of them. Even when they're fenced, fences have been unbolted or torn down. We are already losing, or on the verge of losing, major archaeological and historical areas. In some cases, they're already gone.
If all this sounds like there are tens of thousands of villains from the Los Angeles basin maliciously destroying our national heritage every weekend, it's not as simple as that. The majority of ORV users are with their families and claim to appreciate the beauty of the desert just as much as hikers and members of the Sierra Club.
That one's my dad's, that one's my mom's. It was my dad's, that one's his. And that one's my sister's, and this one's mine.
What ORV users object to most strongly is the way they have been confined to very limited sections of the desert. Of the 16 million acres of desert that extends from the Sierra Nevada in the north down to the Mexican border, 11 million acres belong to the people of the United States and are managed by the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. The BLM, it seems, can please no one. The agency gives the ORV people open areas where they can hold their events and roam freely. In other areas, they are confined to existing trails or banned entirely. People like Dick Moon, who heads a group of dune buggy riders, feel that they are the last on the list when it comes to parceling out the federal land for recreation.
I feel definitely that my children who live in a great metropolitan area, I want to keep off the streets, the crime rate, the pills, the dope, the whole thing. I think recreation as a family sport is a tremendous value to me. But as those metropolitan areas grow in population, the areas for recreation decrease.
This is a protest race that was held in Barstow, California last Thanksgiving weekend. There used to be an annual Barstow to Vegas motorcycle race every Thanksgiving. But after 1974, environmentalists managed to get it banned. It's been illegal ever since. Every year, hundreds of bikers and their families show up here to protest that ban and to protest the policies of the Bureau of Land Management.
This is a good ride. This has always been a good ride, and we're interested in keeping our desert open.
They're closing down a lot of races. You get a race course and they'll close it down on you.
If illegal races across the desert horrify the ecologists, no people are angrier with the ORVs than the homesteaders who moved out to the desert to get away from it all. Some of their places are very near open ORV areas, and many of them are afraid.
I never leave my house unlocked day or night, because if I say anything to any of them, they'll sass me back. And me being a widow lady and living out there all by myself, I am afraid, and I'm not the only one that's afraid.
We've been everything from threatened with guns, laughed at, or, you know, they just tell us there's nothing we can do about it.
I've been shot at night when I tried to keep them from shooting over my house. These are people who come out, and at night when they can't ride around too much, they go out and hunt with spotlights, which is illegal, and start shooting up the area at night.
The homesteaders who leave their places for part of the year have been the hardest hit. Some of the families have come back to find their houses destroyed and the wood used for firewood.
We came in the yard and pulled around the house here, and there was at least 20 campers in the backyard, just lined up there, right? There are bikes going in and out of the house, in the front door, out the back door, right? There are kids in the house here doing all sorts of things, and of course they've got their beer and they're drinking it up and they're all drunk. And I had my window open. It was a nice summer day. Pulled around back of the house, and here's this guy staggers out. He says, "Come on in, buddy, and have a beer." He's in my house and he's on my property, right, inviting me in for a beer.
I've never felt like killing a man until I've confronted these people here that have come roaring by my house 4 abreast at early hours of the morning, and I've never had that hostile level of feeling in my life before until I've lived out here.
We deplore that type of vandalism, or any kind of vandalism.
Bob Tarter and Jim Wells are with the American Motorcycle Association.
We can assure you that members of our organized group are not the people that are perpetrating that vandalism. For the most part, except for maybe 1%, the motorcycling community, so to speak, are highly responsible people.
I have found a few who are considerate, but the great majority don't care. They're out there and they feel that this desert is open land and that they own it.
Some of the residents and ecologists have said that the Bureau of Land Management can never enforce existing regulations to protect the desert. There are millions of off-road vehicles and only a couple of dozen rangers. They say the only solution is to close down the desert even more to keep these machines off the public lands. But off-roaders like Dick Moon argue that the desert represents more to them than the residents and ecologists realize.
Don't close it because of this impact. Open it up a little bit more to accept those people. Yes, there's people that have got to get out of that city life. They've got to have recreation. All the doctors we talk to say that mental disorders, physical disorders, heart troubles, ulcers and stuff are caused by that precious city life. And they've got to get out and recreate. But when there's no place to go, what do we all do? What does my family do?
Discover a new horizon. Horizon TC3, the first American sport coupe with front-wheel drive. Discover standard features like electric release hatchback, AM/FM radio, radial tires. Discover options like the exciting rally equipment package, including spoiler and sport suspension. Discover Horizon TC3.
Such a simple miracle. In every glass of Gallo Premium wine, like Hearty Burgundy, you can see the sun because Gallo cares. In every glass, you can see the good earth because Gallo cares. In every glass, the round and lovely grape because Gallo cares. You can see and taste the care that Ernest and Julio Gallo take. Go with the good wine. Go with Gallo Hearty Burgundy.
Once again, it's time for the mail, and last week most of it was about our story on Mexican oil. One viewer said we have taken advantage of countries like Mexico for years, and then the viewer asked, how can we squawk when these financially backward countries seek to get their price for their oil? It's not highway robbery, it's the American free enterprise system slapping us in the face. Another letter said, 60 Minutes showed extremely poor taste in interviewing high Mexican officials just before President Carter's visit to Mexico. And that thought was echoed by another viewer who wrote, you're getting too big for your britches. Also in the mail were several letters like this one. When you try to speak Spanish, you're really funny. The word in Spanish, which means all the wealth of a nation, is patrimonio, not patronomio, the word you used. About our story on rats, we heard from quite a few cat fanciers. This letter was typical. Preceding the rat-borne plague that swept Europe, cats had been exterminated as part of the witch craze of that period. If more people owned cats, the rat population would decrease. But this was our favorite. The best rat killer is available in the local grocery store, soda pop. Rats love the sweet taste of soft drinks, and since they can't burp, the carbonation just keeps building up until they burst. However, the experts tell us that just isn't so. They won't burst. Going back a week, we're still getting mail about the couple who testified for the government and then got shabby treatment from that same government which promised to take care of them. Most everyone who wrote sympathized with Chris and Mary, but there was also a dissenting voice. He wrote, "It serves both of them right. If you work for a corporation that wishes to be corrupt, as long as it does not involve you, keep your damn nose out of other people's business." And finally, about Morley Safer's trip to the exotic Maldive Islands, a viewer said, "Charles Kuralt, eat your heart out." I'm Harry Reisner. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.
The trains are gone now, but this little station keeps on working as a constant reminder that business insurance is a two-way track. At Employers of Warsaw, our guidance can help you control losses, but your efforts are just as necessary so that, as partners, we can save life and health and property. For business insurance, come to the source, Employers Insurance of Warsaw.
Datsun introduces the perfect snow car, the snug and nimble new Datsun 310. Rich, soft velour to warm your body. Rear window defrosters, side window defoggers, new rust-proofing, and front-wheel drive to pull you through. See the snow-loving, gas-saving new Datsun 310 at your Datsun dealer before you can't get to your Datsun dealer. Datsun, we are driven to pull you through.
Minutes from now, Vera gets way too much advice from her friends when she loses her beau on Alice. Then stay tuned as Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Olivier, Roy Schneider, and Martha Keller star in the TV premiere of the hit movie thriller Marathon Man. Stay tuned now for All in the Family next.